Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about what to look for on your final walkthrough when you are purchasing a home here in the state of Maryland. We're going to be discussing exactly what to be on the lookout for and exactly what a final walkthrough is. So let's get started right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel, where we talk about all things living here in the state of Maryland. So if that's the kind of information that you are looking for, you are definitely in the right place. Make sure to hit subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're made aware of the new videos that we do each and every week discussing all things living here in the great state of Maryland. And if you are considering moving here to the area, purchasing a home here in the state, we absolutely love taking your calls, your emails, your text messages. However you prefer to reach out, we absolutely love to help. Days, nights, and weekends, we've got your back when moving here to the state of Maryland. All right, everyone, so first off, I wanted to basically just explain what a final walkthrough is here in Maryland according to our state contract. So really what we're looking for is, in Maryland, it's very common to see a 30 to 45 day close time frame. So that means by the time you're at your final walkthrough, it may have been a month, close to a month and a half since you actually negotiated initial terms and conditions with the seller and got an accepted offer. So in between that time, the final walkthrough is really just to make sure that the home is in substantially the same condition as it was when we went under contract on the home. And that's really what the final walkthrough is for, to make sure that there was no damage on the move out. If the seller was still occupying the home, we want to make sure there was no damage there. If it was vacant, then that's going to be easier to notice, as you walk through. But that's really what the final walkthrough is. Unfortunately, our state contracts are designed where you negotiate everything, all terms and conditions up front. So it's not really a time to renegotiate the contract, negotiate credits or anything like that. It's really just to make sure that the home was not damaged and that it's in the same condition as it was when you got an accepted offer on the home. So when do you have the right to do your final walkthrough? So you really have the right to do it within 5 days leading up to closing. A lot of times though, just to be honest, it happens a lot sooner than that. We might be doing it the day before or the day of, because we really want to make sure that the seller is fully out. So if we're doing a walkthrough and they still have stuff in there, it's really an incomplete walkthrough. We want to make sure that they're fully out, that the home is fully vacant, and that there was no damage on the move out, and that we can fully inspect the home and just make sure that everything looks good. So that's kind of the timeline of the walkthrough and when you reserve the right to do that. And then next, wanted to explain to you exactly what our Maryland state contract says, that the seller's responsibility is for the condition of the home at closing. So what can you expect as a buyer when you're going to closing of the condition of the home? So our contract states that the home needs to be vacant, free of debris and trash, and broom swept. So that's kind of what your expectation can be. Some sellers will go above and beyond and hire professional cleaners to come in and clean, and some people just take pride in that and handing over the home in as good of condition, as clean of condition as possible. But a lot of sellers don't do that, and that's kind of what our contract says. So at the walkthrough too, we're also making sure that there's nothing left behind, that it's fully vacant, that it's broom swept, and free of all debris and trash, to make sure that you're not going to have to deal with that after you take ownership of the home. And then one thing I wanted to mention here specifically during this environment, as far as how the market is right now, how competitive it is, and it's like this around the country for the most part from what I've been hearing from people that I talk to. So when you go as is, and because it's so competitive, it's still very common to see a lot of buyers go as is. I've done other videos discussing this. There's a few different forms of as is that you can go. But regardless, when a buyer goes as is, you actually remove paragraph 22 of the state contract, which speaks to the fact that the home needs to be vacant, free of debris and trash, and fully cleared out. So when you go as is, you're removing that contract. So it's extra important in those kind of situations that we make sure that the seller is fully out. Now for me, the way I structure contracts with as is I always just copy and paste that paragraph and I put it into an addendum, and we make sure that the seller signs it, because to be honest, most sellers are not looking to leave the home full of trash and full of their stuff. I mean, that's just not the case. I've never really had an issue with this, but it's something that we do want to be on the lookout and make sure that we're protecting buyers, because in theory, when you're going as is, you are removing that paragraph, and technically the seller can just leave a bunch of stuff. They don't have to clean, they don't have to leave it vacant. So that's something that we always make sure to put back in the contract, to make sure that we can hold the seller accountable to leave the home vacant and free of debris for you, so you don't have to deal with that once you close and sign on the dotted line, and then the home's yours. So we want to make sure that we always include that as well. Okay, and then when we're at the final walkthrough, there's going to be a few things that we want to be on the lookout for, and it's totally natural when you're a buyer closing on, maybe it's your first home, maybe it's not your first home. There's still a lot of excitement, a lot of stuff going on. So this is something that I always like to attend and just make sure that I'm, kind of being, the eyes and ears for the buyers, because sometimes you're just, distracted with, there's so much going on with closing. So there's a few things that we really want to pay attention to. We want to make sure that we're looking for any negotiated repairs that were negotiated back in the negotiation repairs timeline and time frame. So if there was any repairs that the seller agreed to complete, we want to be on the lookout for those. We want to make sure that we got any invoices if the repairs required a licensed contractor or whatever. We want to make sure we have those in hand and that we lay our eyes on those and just make sure that those are complete, so that when you close, you don't have to deal with following up with that and making sure that was done and complete. So that's something that we want to be on the lookout for. Another thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we turn on all the lights, and we want to make sure all the utilities are on and functional. So at the time of the walkthrough, depending on how close to closing it is, if it's the day of, then there's a good chance that you would have called either BG&E or one of the other electric utility companies that we have here in the area and actually put it into your name, just to avoid any kind of interruption in service. If it's a day or two before, chances are it's still in the seller's name. So we just want to make sure that there's no issues with that transfer, make sure that all the lights are on and that everything's running there, so that all that looks good. And then we also want to go around, and I like to flush all the toilets at least once, run the water for, just a little bit, maybe a minute or two, and just make sure that everything is good there, that there's no issues with the drainage and that the water's on and functional. In Maryland, really the only thing that you're transferring leading up to closing is the electric and the gas. And BG&E is for the most part Central Maryland. They do electric and gas, so you got one-stop shop, one company there that you can change the utilities with. And then cool thing here in Maryland is that the title companies handle the transfer of water, so that's something that you don't have to mess with. It's off your plate, and the title company will always handle that. They always collect money from the seller at closing to make sure that they can prorate the bill, so when the next bill comes, you're only responsible from the day that you take ownership. So they can take some money that they held from the seller and pay the seller's portion, and then tell you what you're responsible for moving forward. So that's always nice. It's just one less thing to do for the buyer when it comes to closing, because there's definitely a lot going on when you're going to close on a home. And then the final thing that I like to do is when I'm running the water for a minute, I like to open up the cabinets underneath and just make sure there's no leaks. Again, we're looking for to do this final walkthrough, we're looking to make sure that the home is in the same condition as it was when we went under contract. So we're just wanting to make sure that there's no issues at the final walkthrough that were not there when you got the offer accepted on the home. So those are a handful of things that I like to do just to make sure that you are taking ownership of the home, in the best way possible, to where you're not taking on anything that you don't need to be. And once you sign the dotted line here in Maryland, we're an at-the-table state. The home is yours. So we do want to make sure that when we're at the walkthrough, we're definitely looking out for some of these things to make sure we save any headaches for you as the home buyer here in Maryland. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out or comment below, and we'll see you with the next video.